Okay, welcome to part 3, ECO 501 Section 2, Spring 2020, Brack University MBA program. So, in this particular part, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a very brief overview of what the course is about. At the same time, I'm going to tell you what the course is not about. Now, one of the biggest problems with economics is economists have been very clever in making themselves look to be, very clever, which they're not. Economists never can make predictions properly. At least, they have never been able to predict any kind of crash, any kind of pandemic, anything. But they have the latest, best, sophisticated models of econometrics. So one thing, we are not here to make any predictions in the course. What we want to do is to find out how are decisions made. So if you have done a basic economics course, two of our friends have not. One from linguistics from Brack University, and our other friend from Managerial University in Rajshahi. Apart from that, everybody here has done a basic economics course. And in this basic economics course, if it was microeconomics, didn't we try to understand how to make a decision? How do I make a good choice? Right? We came across a concept called opportunity cost, right? Hmm? Does
Yes,
any
sir. Yes, sir.
good?
Yes, sir.
Basically, our managerial economics, as the title suggests, is how do managers make decisions? How will a business manager make a decision? Not an entrepreneur. So I'm here. I'm here right now. I have to make a decision. How do I make the decision? Now, when we say this thing, the problem that arises is whether the decision will be good or bad. We will only find that out when after the decision has been made, তাই না? একটা decision নেওয়ার আগে কি আমরা বলতে পারবো decisionটা ভালো না খারাপ?
না।
এটা কোনোদিন সম্ভব না। It's logically impossible until something has happened, it has evolved properly, opened up properly. We cannot say whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. We are not interested in whether a decision was good or bad in the end. What we are going to do is how do we make a decision? This is the first thing that we're going to look at. And building on this, we're going to expand the course. And as we do this, we will be using a concept called market analysis. What's market analysis? Market analysis is nothing but demand and supply. How is demand determined? What do we understand by demand? And what are the implications of these demand decisions for business firms, for consumers? Let me give you a very small example. Managerial University are English linguists. তোমরা দুজন আছো? Are you guys here?
Yes, sir.
Lovely. Managerial University তুমি কি আছো নাকি তুমি চলে গেছো রাজশাহী আবার? আছে?
Yes, sir. আমি আছি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, very good. আচ্ছা, তো তোমরা বলো তো সিগারেটের দাম কমে না কেন?
স্যার এটা চাহিদা বেশি স্যার, সব সময় মানুষ এটা
সবার চাহিদা নাই। Other lady, the linguist. Well, you tell me why doesn't the price of cigarettes fall?
Sir, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Why do we observe that the price of cigarettes don't fall over time? Price of cigarettes কিন্তু সবসময় বেড়েই গেছে, অল্প অল্প করে হলেও বেড়ে গেছে। Why?
Because maybe no matter how much the price increase, the demand will always be the same. Because it's actually an addiction.
Acha, very good. Addiction, right? Is there anybody here in the pharmaceutical industry? Do we have anybody working in the pharmaceutical industry? Okay. Our demand for cigarettes has nothing to do with its price. Our demand for medicine has nothing to do with its price. Do we agree on this common ground?
Sir, it is
Our
based on addiction and need.
addiction and need, addiction is in a bad sense, okay? Need is in a good sense. But the demand for medicine and the demand for cigarettes has nothing to do with our with the price of the commodity. So even if the price of the tablets go up, people will still be consuming what their doctor has prescribed. Right? That's why
Yes,
you
sir.
will never see that the price of cigarettes or the price of the pharmaceuticals things have fallen in over time. But the price of our own sharis, our own Punjabis, these will follow. Right?
Ji, sir.
What's because people's demand responds to a price decrease. Right? So depending on different commodities, the price decrease, price increase, this will be a concept called elasticity of demand. How this is related to business decision making, this is what we are going to try to find out. Now, what this course is not about is we are not interested in lots of theory, lots of equations, this and that. What we want to do, we want to try to interpret what a ratio is. How do we interpret a ratio? This is the first thing that we're going to discuss next week. I'm going to discuss some basic tools that we're going to use throughout the course. These tools are extremely simple tools which are based on. Sorry, did somebody say something? No. Okay. These are very simple tools depending on the high school information. Then we will start the course. Okay. And as we start the course, we will be looking at different environments that we find ourselves in. For example, if we are at Shodanghar, we respond in one way. If we are in the comfort of our room, we respond in another way. In different environments, people act differently. In different environments, people think differently. So the more information that we have, the better we can think. The less information that we have, the less we can think. If you and I are going to make a transaction, you know more about the product than I do, then you have an upper hand, right? For example,
Yes,
if we want to buy a second-hand car, who has better information about the actual quality? The seller, right? If we
yes,
want,
sir.
Yes.
then naturally the seller knows more about the actual quality than the buyer. তা তাই বলে কি দুজনের মধ্যে কি ট্রানজাকশন হয় না?
Right.
তাই না?
হয়।
In insurance market, the opposite happens. The seller is the insurance company. The buyer is the person who's going to buy the insurance. Doesn't the buyer know more about themselves than the seller? ওখানে ওখানে একটা imbalance আছে না ইনফরমেশনের?
Yes, sir.
So what happens is, even then, these insurance companies are
Yes,
you
sir,
know,
they know.
having. So, আচ্ছা আমরা একটু pause দেই, হ্যাঁ? Okay, where did we? Does anybody remember? আমরা কোথায় ছিলাম? Okay.
Sir, different environment, people have different opinions.
So the thing is, the same decision maker will be operating differently under different steps. Because so these are the different things that we're going to look at. For example, when we introduce the concept of markets, when you are in a monopolistically competitive market, the decision making is in one way. When you are under monopoly, the decision will be under one way. When you are under oligopoly, decision will be another way. Then we come to the concept of relevant market. Because for example, if you are familiar with perfect competition, you know that it's a market where each farm has very little market share, right? তাই না?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
তাহলে এখন ধরা যাক ঢাকা শহরে যারা কলা বিক্রি করে টোটাল মার্কেটে কি তাদের কোনো শেয়ার আছে? আচ্ছা, those of you who roam around in Dhaka city, what is the most common food on the street? Isn't it bananas and eggs?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
মানে if you walk on ঢাকা সিটি, হ্যাঁ মানে যে জাস্ট একটা হাঁটা দিলাম আমরা, সবচেয়ে কমন খাবার হচ্ছে সিদ্ধ ডিম আর হলো কলা। So if there are 20 million people in this city, if 50% of them has one egg every day, what is the demand for eggs in this city? 10 million per day, na?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Isn't that a huge market?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But that type of a market is a fragmented market. No single seller can influence that 10 million eggs in one day, right? ঠিক তো?
Yes, sir.
yes,
কিন্তু as the course proceeds, we will show that that same egg seller, that same banana seller can exercise market power if they are thrown into a context where they can. So this is basically what we are going to do, that how are decisions made, what are the components of demand, the second one, how these components affect decision making of firms and consumers. Then we are going to look at different markets. How do firms operate in these different markets? And throughout the whole syllabus, so throughout the whole course that I've done in 2021, all the examples will be in the context of Bangladesh. So if those of you who are working, you can think about a context in the context of your workplace. In section 1, there was 2 people who are working at Bikash. So whatever we learn, they can think about how to apply it in the context of Bikash. You can think about how to apply it in the context of your particular office. So what will happen, we will have different case studies throughout the course, and everybody will have an incentive to tell us their personal story. Why am I saying this? Since this is online, we have to have a gentleman's handshake that okay, I trust you and you have to trust me. So if you can tell me a story that is relevant to your workplace, it will automatically be different from somebody else's story. Oh, somebody will be saying in the context of Bikash, another person will say that same story in the context of say eat your ice cream. Won't the decisions, the stories be different from each other?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And since most of you guys are working, so you can easily think about how can I tell this story in the context of my own experience. You don't have to use graphs. You don't have to use equations. You just make me convinced that you understood the theory and you could apply it. So this course is not about technicality. This course is about how to make how to think and how to apply these thinking to a real world context, specifically in the context of Bangladesh. So basically, so here we are. We'll get into this in more detail when we start next week. Managerial economics is just an applied branch of economics, more specifically an applied branch of microeconomics. Microeconomics discusses decision making. That's why we are going to look at microeconomics in this course. Now, why are we using tools from economics? Economics, among the social sciences or the business studies, is the oldest discipline that has discussed decision making from the 19th century, from 2 centuries ago. That's why over time, economics has developed more sophisticated methods of trying to analyze decision making. in the last 50 years, finance sprout out, human resources management sprout out. They have developed their own methods over time. But economics is the grandpa who did it, first. Now, this is something that came out in the faculty meeting with the dean on Friday before the semester started. That most of the textbooks that we discuss in the context of managerial economics or any other branch in your MBA program are either USA or UK based, right?
Yes, sir.
And their
Yes,
case
sir.
studies are based on USA and UK. That doesn't make much sense for us. That's why we will be reading their textbooks, but we will be thinking about how to apply those in the context of Bangladesh. This is the textbook. It's available. It's in the Google Drive, and I'll send the links after the class. And basically, I'll discuss this in the next class. What are the decision of what the economics the definition means, what are the components that we look at, and next week we are going to look at some tools. The tools are very simple. How to read a ratio, okay, how to read differences, x2 minus x1, x1 minus x2, what's the difference between the two? If somebody writes x1 minus x2, ঠিক আছে আরেকজন লিখলো x2 minus x1, what's the difference between the two? একটা পজিটিভ একটা নেগেটিভ হবে না?
Yes, sir.
জি স্যার।
x1 minus x2 যদি পজিটিভ হয়, definitely x2 minus x1 will be negative. ঠিক আছে? So these are the things that we will try to look at next week in the second part. And how do we plot it in a graph? ঠিক আছে? These are basic but class 8 knowledge. You don't have to worry about at all these things. And like I'm telling you again and again, when I ask you questions, you try to convince me that you've understood. You don't have to show me, technicalities. Just tell me a story where I'm convinced that you understood the topic. So that brings us to the end of part 3. Does anybody have any questions?
So far, no, sir. Thank you.
So you don't have. Does anybody else have questions? I mean, yeah, slide and syllabus to shop. I'll make it available in a little while. কারো কোনো question আছে?
No question, sir.
Oh my God! Either that means আমার আজকে না আসলেও চলতো. You guys are too intelligent. Okay. ঠিক আছে তাহলে. What I'll do, I'll stop the recording now.